Hello, my friends. Welcome to another Bible study. I am going to show you how I conclude what I conclude. And I've tried to do this a little bit recently with word studies and showing you the development of how we search common search words in other passages to locate similar information to gain additional context. Reason this is coming up is because of the two very often taken out of context scriptures in the synoptic gospels of Matthew and Luke regarding what we should identify as second coming related. But it has to do with this, these words signs. It has to do with the intervention of signs into this time period and people trying to liken it to what we see going on. So as I explained in the last video that I did, where I took you through parallel passages to underscore the fact that Isaiah 17 has nothing to do with the rapture. It is not a guidepost on the way to the rapture. It is linked to one of the cities of the nations falling after the pouring out of the seventh vial, just before Babylon's destroyed, and part and parcel with the second coming of Christ. And my point there was, if you didn't understand that from Revelation, which would be hard to miss because it's just one little clause, you have Jeremiah 49, where Damascus is linked to a whole bunch of other cities in chapters 46 through 51. 46 through 49 is all of the cities of the nations falling, and then Babylon is 50 and 51, Jeremiah 50 and 51, which is the sequence of events given in Revelation 16 through 18. And then also, if you missed it there, then Damascus is the first city listed as being destroyed amongst the many in Amos 1 and 2, listed in the first two verses of Amos 1. And it links it to the great earthquake from Revelation 16 and the Lord roaring out of Zion, which is linked to the second coming clearly. And then so I took you through the actual chapter of Isaiah 17 itself to show you how in multiple spots in that chapter alone, you have parallel passages. I call them sister passages. But in the mouth of two or three witnesses, let every word be established. The Bible is its own self-contained resource. You do not ever have to guess what it means. All you need to do is find the parallel passage, which there will be at least one other of, to give you additional context and meaning to help you arrive at the correct conclusion. This is, I believe, a problem with starting point. Is that the majority of the people who study the end times are pre-trib rapture people. At least, well, I guess not even majority, but a lot of people are. And they're focused on the rapture. That is their sole focus, is trying to discern, understand, know, figure out the timing of the rapture. And so because that is their end goal, everything that they interpret is through that lens. So if you read about signs in the sun, moon, and stars, well, gosh, we have eclipses. And, well, in 2015, we had blood moons and constellations and stellarium. And they have this attribution error based on their sole focus. Is they have decided to interpret the Bible, their understanding of the Bible, through the lens of trying to figure out when the rapture is going to happen and all of these quote-unquote signs that lead to that understanding. The problem with that is these signs are for the 70th week and later, usually, and as is the case that we're going to talk about here, related to the second coming of Jesus Christ. While I understand that people want to know when the rapture is going to happen, you are not going to get closer to that answer by misattributing scriptures to the wrong events. All you're going to do is take the Bible entirely out of context, destroy the integrity of the text, and still get nowhere closer to your answer. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did with Isaiah 17, take you through all the parallel passages to certainly and without question link it where it should be linked. And I did that with a handful of verses in that chapter. And then obviously there is just talking about the destruction of Damascus on the whole. It's also in Amos, and it's also in Jeremiah, and it's also in Revelation. So Isaiah 17 is not the only place where that appears. There are others. And then through the text of the actual chapter itself, you can undeniably ascertain where it belongs in the sequence of prophetic events. We're going to do the same thing here. So Luke 21:25, for some reason, this probably gets taken out of context more than Matthew 24. I think, and that's because Matthew 24 very clearly states when the signs in the sun, moon, and stars are going to be visible. And it relates it to the second coming. So we're going to start here with Luke 21, because this is an attribution error. And what I mean by that is the predisposition to attribute things to the wrong event based on a bias that you have. So when we look at Luke 21, and I went through this recently about Luke 21 in contrast to Matthew 24 and how they're different, but we're going to look at the same verses in both chapters. These are parallel verses. So Luke 21:25 through 27. There shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Now I do understand that there is a rush to pull this, to cherry pick this one singular verse out and say, oh, we have eclipses and we have blood moons and we have constellations and we have all of these other things and we have wars going on and people are perplexed because of it, so that must be what it's talking about. No, it's not. And Matthew 24 clarifies context, as do the other places that we're going to go. But also notice here that this is not a full sentence. There is going to be more to discuss. This is a semicolon. Therefore, this is not something that people should be isolating and just pulling out and saying, oh, this is happening now. Let's complete the thought. First and foremost, let's pay attention to the way that the structure of this thought is written, and let's make sure that we're including all of it. Men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the cloud with power and great glory. Okay, so you have key words here. Sun, moon, stars, and Jesus coming in the clouds with power and great glory. So let's look at the parallel passage in another of the Gospels. Where does it place this relating to the sun, moon, stars, and the return of Jesus Christ at the glorious appearing? Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, the stars shall fall from heaven, the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. So the powers of the heavens shall be shaken is specifically what Luke 21:26 is talking about. So in Matthew 24:29, you have a reference to the time when this will occur. Undeniably, it should put to rest what people think is going on now. They're generalizing what is meant to be specific, taking it out of context and applying it to our present day and age. But the sister passage to this, the parallel passage to this, tells you that that occurs immediately after the conclusion of the 70th week. Talks about the sun being darkened, the moon not giving her light, the stars falling from heaven. Okay? Those are the signs in the sun, moon, and stars. Upon the earth, distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. Continue the thought, men's hearts failing them for fear, for looking after those things which are coming upon the earth. What things are coming upon the earth that they're causing men's hearts to fail because of fear from? The powers of the heaven shall be shaken, which is exactly what it says here. So in Luke 21, you have two verses which, when combined, say the same thing as Matthew 24:29, and Matthew 24:29 tells you precisely when this is going to occur. And then the third verse in Luke 21, which is 27 of what I have on my screen, matches exactly what Matthew 24:30 says. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the cloud with power and great glory. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. All the tribes of the earth shall mourn. They shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. While I understand that there is a rush to conflate what is going on now with what will go on at the second coming, it is absolutely inaccurate to do so, and it is honestly detrimental to the study of Bible prophecy, to the to the integrity of Bible prophecy if all you're trying to do is understand what is left for us to understand. If you don't have a bias about trying to look for the rapture and trying to find ways to make it sooner than it is, which is counterproductive anyway because you're not in charge. God's got a timeline. Our job should be to understand what that timeline is, not inject our own bias into this conversation or our own wants or needs or our own perspectives. We don't factor into this conversation other than we are recipients of the gift that he gave us on account of his graciousness. That is it. So, from my perspective, take it for what it is. The only way that anyone should be studying the Bible is just to learn what it says. Free from your own wants and wishes and biases. What does the Bible say? It doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter what I want. It doesn't matter what we think. It matters what the Bible says. So to do integrity, to the study of, to do with integrity, the study of the end times, of Bible prophecy, to understand as it was intended for us to understand, you gotta take yourself out of this and just read the text and interpret the text based on the parallel passages. What does it say? What does it mean? And maybe you feel some way about it after you concluded accurately what it says, but you can't conclude something before you study. You have to let the text interpret itself, and then you can decide you want to feel some way about it later. But you can't go into Bible study with the intent of finding what you want to find. I think it was Chuck Missler who said, if you beat the Bible enough, it'll tell you whatever you want to hear. And that is what people have done. So Luke 21:25-27 is Matthew 24:29-30. The signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, and looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heaven shall be shaken, is Matthew 24:29. And they are linked to signs of the second coming, the glorious appearing of Christ specifically. So what I want to do, since these are synoptic gospels and you would expect to find the same type of thing by each gospel writer, at least Matthew, Mark, and Luke, I want to take you to the Old Testament prophets where Jesus was actually pulling the information from to tell you about what his second coming is going to look like. So what I have here is just BibleGateway.com. And I put up here search terms, sun, moon, stars. Because, again, we go back to Luke 21, people pulling out verse 25 and saying, oh gosh, that's happening now. No, it's not. But sun, moon, and stars are going to be our search terms for this study. So what I did was I just put sun, moon, stars. And without quotation marks around any of the specific words, so they don't have to appear in that specific order. I just want to see all verses in the Bible that tell me where the words sun, moon, stars appear in the same verse. And there are 14 times. So I'm going to look for occurrences of the same type of language regarding sun, moon, and stars, which is withdraw their shining, cease to shine, whatever. So we're not talking about Genesis 37:9, but that actually is the dream, interestingly enough, that is the dream of Joseph's that correlates to the understanding of Revelation 12 and the sun, moon, and stars in there. So, so interestingly enough, the first reference it's outside the scope of our discussion, but it is the imagery used to explain the text in Revelation 12:1 about the recurrence of the sun, moon, and stars and what that represents, which is the 12 tribes of Israel. But anyway, so that's an example of how we understand imagery from Revelation, because it's always going to have a counterpart somewhere else in the Bible. So that's actually in Genesis 37:9. But continuing on, talking about seeing the sun, moon, and stars. So Deuteronomy is not going to take us where we need to go. Psalm 148, praise ye sun, moon, and stars. That's not the same context. Ecclesiastes 12, while the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened. So that's not talking about what we want to talk about. Isaiah 13. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, the moon shall not cause her light to shine. That is precisely what we are talking about. Okay, so we want to bookmark Isaiah 13 and go back to there for context, because that is going to tell us precisely the same things that Luke 21 and Matthew 24 were telling us. Okay, let's continue. Jeremiah 31. Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day. The ordinances, that's not talking about the same thing. Ezekiel 32. And when I shall put thee out, I will cover the heaven and make the stars thereof dark. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. That is exactly what we're talking about here. So let's take a peek at Ezekiel 32. And then we have Joel 2 and Joel 3, which exactly say the same thing. Specifically the verse that Jesus will have been pulling this from. I always go to Joel 3, but that's beyond, we'll come back to that. The earth shall quake before them, the heaven shall tremble, the sun and the moon shall be dark, the stars shall withdraw their shining. Joel 3:15, the sun and the moon shall be darkened, the stars shall withdraw their shining. And then you move into the two passages that we have. So we have some good reference material to increase our study, to solidify the point that I just made, that Matthew 24 and Luke 21, Matthew 24, 29 and 30, and Luke 21, 25 through 27 talk about the signs at the second coming, the signs in conjunction with the second coming that will be witnessed in the sun, moon, and stars. So what I want to do is go to Isaiah 13, Ezekiel 32, and Joel 2 and 3. So Isaiah 13, Ezekiel 32, Joel 2, Joel 3. Okay, and I'm going to leave that other tab up because I'm not sure exactly where, I know about Isaiah 13. It's the burden of Babylon. This is the Old Testament reference, one of them. I mentioned earlier that, and just talking about the last video that I did about Damascus and how that's one of the cities that falls just before the destruction of Damascus, as is stated in Revelation 16 after the pouring out of the seventh vial. And actually, I will just, since I'm here and I'm talking about these things, I might as well show you what I mean, rather than rely on you to take my word for it. So Revelation 16. The seventh angel poured his vial into the air. There came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne saying, "It is done." So the 70th week is over. There were voices and thunderings and lightnings. There was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. The great city was divided into three parts, that's Jerusalem, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God to give to her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. So when you're talking about the burden of Babylon, and it's going to fall, yes, it's going to fall in the great earthquake, which is mentioned in Revelation 16 after the pouring out of the seventh vial. And indeed, that's absolutely what Amos 1 tells you. The words of Amos, who was among the herdsmen of Tekoa, which he saw concerning Israel in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah, in the days of Jeroboam, the son of Joash, king of Israel, 2 years before the earthquake. And he said, "The Lord will roar from Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem. The habitations of the shepherd shall mourn, the top of Carmel shall wither. Thus saith the Lord, for three transgressions of Damascus, and for 4 I will not turn away the punishment thereof." Clearly, this is linked to Jesus at the second coming. Now, I'm actually going to, if I had my Bible to show you, I would show you that just on the page right before this is the reference in Joel. Joel comes right before Amos. And Amos 1, 1 and 2, talking about Jesus, the Lord roaring from Zion, utter his voice from Jerusalem, is linked to the destruction of the city, which is what Revelation 16 tells you. And it's also linked to the destruction of Babylon, or just before the destruction of Babylon. Well, this is what it says here in one of our references relating to Matthew 24 and Luke 21. The sun and the moon shall be darkened, the stars shall withdraw their shining. The Lord also shall roar out of Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth shall shake, but the Lord will be the hope of his people and the strength of the children of Israel. So this is one of our sun, moon, stars references that I put to save on that list of 4 to go through. And what is it linked to? The Lord roaring out of Zion. which is specifically when the destruction of Damascus is linked to the Lord roaring out of Zion. So, due diligence without a predisposition to a specific type of answer or without a bias, and you're just looking at the Bible to interpret itself, understanding that the Bible is a self-contained resource and that it will answer itself. It will provide its own answers. You just have to search for them. And when you do that, it tells you exactly what you need to know about what you need to know about, what you are trying to get to the bottom of. It'll tell you everything. You just have to not force it to say things it doesn't say. So Joel 2, so that was Joel 3. Let's go to the Joel 2 reference. What was that from our list? Joel 2:10. Okay, so let's go to Joel 2:10. And this is, blow ye the trumpet in Zion, sound an alarm in my holy mountain, let all of the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is cometh, it is nigh at hand. Okay, so the second coming is nigh at hand. It says, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains. A great people and strong, there hath never been the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. And then it says, talks about the mighty men of war climbing the walls of Jerusalem, and nobody can kill them because they're the supernatural army of the beast, that trumpet 5 and trumpet 6, the locust army, the 100 million man army, it's supernatural in its origin. So who can kill them? What does it say? Well, Jesus can. Jesus can kill them, and that's what Joel 2 is preparing to say, is everything is so dire and so bad, but hey, Jesus is on the way to rescue. The earth shall quake before them, the heavens shall tremble, the sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining, and the Lord shall utter his voice before his army. He's roaring out of Zion. For his camp is very great, for he is strong that executeth his word. For the day of the Lord is great and very terrible, who can abide it? Well, certainly not those bad guys. So these are a couple of references. So far, hopefully, you can see undeniably, very clearly, that 100% of them say exactly the same thing, which is the signs in the sun, moon, and stars relate to the day that Jesus is going to return to slay wickedness. They are related to Jesus' second coming. So let's continue. I'm actually going to go back to Isaiah 13, where I started talking about the burden of Babylon, to show you the relationship between Damascus and Babylon and the second coming and the signs in the sun and the moon and the stars. But the burden of Babylon, this which Isaiah the son of Amos did see. Lift ye up a banner upon the high mountain, exalt the voice unto him, shake the hand that they may go into the gates of the nobles. So this is interesting because in the chapters of Revelation 17 and 18, specifically chapter 17, it says that the armies of the beast, this is interesting, so I'm just going to show you what I mean by this, is that right here, it talks about the beast and the 10 kings having one mind to destroy Babylon. It is at the behest of the beast, beast 1, that Babylon is burned with fire. Why? Because God had put it in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and to give their kingdom, talking about the 10 kings, 10 horns, give their kingdom unto the beast until the word of God shall be fulfilled. So when you're talking about who destroys Babylon, the beast and the 10 kings, the army of the beast and the 10 kings does. The 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore and shall make her desolate, and naked shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God had put it in their heart to fulfill his will. And that is exactly what you find in Isaiah 13. I have commanded my sanctified ones, have called my mighty ones for mine anger, even them that rejoice in my highness. The noise of a multitude in the mountain, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts mustereth the host of the battle, because God hath put it in their hearts to accomplish his will. So I just find that this is utterly fascinating, and this is why I say the Bible will always, 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 always support itself in multiple places. All you have to do is look for it. So the why of this in Revelation 17 is found in Isaiah 13. So you're talking about the destruction of Babylon, which the Bible pinpoints as the very last thing before Jesus returns at the second coming. Howl ye, for the day of the Lord is hand. It shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. Yes, because Revelation 17 said that God put it in the hearts of these people to do it, to accomplish his will. Therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt. They shall be afraid. Pangs and sorrow shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman that travaileth. Yeah, birth pangs aren't for us now either. They are not. That is also another thing taken out of context. Whatever. They shall be amazed at one another. Their faces shall be as flames. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth. The moon shall not cause her light to shine. Again, taking us back to our search terms of sun, moon, stars. And I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity, and I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. If it was unclear, there's one more reference I could go through, Ezekiel 32. I'm actually not familiar with that one, so I guess we'll learn together. But if there was any question about what Luke 21:25 through 27 is talking about, please let there be no more confusion. So going to Ezekiel 32, even though search terms of sun, moon, and stars in what appeared to be a similar context were discussed, this is actually talking about Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who will fall to the king of Babylon. So it's talking about things related to that event, which you would expect because Ezekiel 38 and 39 is actually what we're looking for, not Ezekiel 32. So this will have been something far past. And that's actually, even though this verse here was among ones that sounded like it could be of a similar reference, this is not talking about the day of the Lord. This is talking about the destruction of Egypt. So it's outside the scope of our context. And you know what? That's what study produces too, is just because something sounds similar and you might want to explore it, when you get to that, you might find, yep, it's actually not talking about that at all. So Ezekiel 32 is not relevant to our study, but Isaiah 13 is, and Joel 2 and Joel 3 are. And so this is what, when I study, I look for search terms. In this case, we want to know sun, moon, and stars. And why do we want to know sun, moon, and stars? Because both of them were referenced in verses that people, well, Matthew 24:29 is pretty clear. But for some reason, people don't immediately attribute it to Luke 21:25. For some reason, people don't align those things where they should be. So when I study, I'm going to say, okay, well, these are synoptic gospels, so theoretically, I'm not going to say for 100% without doing the due diligence to find that answer, but theoretically, based on the structure of those three gospels, you should find the same thing in both, or at least two of the three, if not all three. So let's look for the same things in both, and that's where these come from. So hopefully, based on the context of one versus the other, if you were unclear about one, you can become clear based on finding the parallel passage. And then, because these are going to be drawing off of Old Testament prophecies, which also include the second coming, hey, let's go look to make sure that we're right. Just in case we're still unclear, let's go look to find them. Joel 2, Joel 3, and Isaiah 13 all say the same things. And they all say the same things about the signs in the sun, moon, and stars being immediate precursors to the return of Jesus Christ, meaning they happen in conjunction with the return of Jesus Christ at the second coming. They are not for us now. Do not generalize what is meant to be specific. Leave the Bible to interpret itself. Maybe it doesn't say what you want it to say. That is a personal problem that you need to come to grips with. You cannot change the interpretation of the Bible to suit your own ends. And if you try, you have just become part of the problem. Don't become part of the problem.